The drop from orbit was smoother than Lieutenant Commander Wren Douglas had expected. Even so, the moment his boots hit the surface of Kepler 442c, a thin puff of gray dust rose up around him, clinging to the synthetic fibers of his suit and settling like a curse in the joints of his gear. "The indigenous life forms are going to love this," Wren muttered, kicking a small stone that skittered barely 2 meters before dissolving into a wisp of ash. A small chuckle escaped over the comms. "Nothing says, 'We come in peace,' like 100 armed colonists stomping across a pristine hellscape," he added, watching the stone vanish. Captain Eliza Walsh shot him a sharp look from behind her visor. "Need I remind you, Lieutenant Commander, that our extensive drone surveys showed no signs of intelligent life?" "Yeah, well, those extensive surveys also claimed this place was terraforming ready and minimally volcanic," he said, gesturing to the 3 smoking peaks bleeding lava in the distant horizon. "I'm beginning to think our expensive drones are just expensive junk." Despite herself, Walsh sighed. "Command decided this was our best option after Proxima Centauri b turned out to be a radiation-soaked nightmare. Unless you'd prefer to turn the colony ships around and try our luck back on Earth?" Wren scoffed. "Earth? As if that was still an option." The rest of the advanced team, 12 specialists in sturdy environmental suits, fanned out across the landing site, their footfalls raising lazy clouds of gray. The dust hung too long in the air, like it didn't quite belong to a world that made sense. Kepler 442c was supposed to be a miracle. Breathable atmosphere, stable orbit, and a chemical composition tantalizingly close to Earth's own prehistoric era. Perfect on paper. But up close, it felt off. Every sound was muffled. The wind carried no scent. The sky had a hue that seemed to shift if he stared too long. Even the sun, smaller and redder than Sol, cast shadows that stretched in strange directions at odd times of day. "This place doesn't want us here," Wren muttered. "Your paranoia is getting louder," Walsh said, brushing off a layer of dust from her sleeve. "Paranoia is just pattern recognition with bad PR," he replied. Walsh smirked. "Your concerns are noted. Now, stop being a pain in my ass and go help Dr. Werner with soil samples." "Yes, ma'am. Anything for the glorious human expansion, ma'am," he deadpanned, and with a stiff mock salute, he trudged away. By evening, if you could call the slow, ruddy dimming of the sun's angry glow evening, the crew had cleared a large circle of ash around the base and deployed 4 prefabricated habitat modules. The humming of life support systems was a welcome sound, a mechanical lullaby in the otherwise dead silence of the ash plains. Inside Habitat Module 1, Wren sat at a workstation scrolling through security logs, but he wasn't absorbing any of it. Something gnawed at him. His hands itched. The back of his neck wouldn't stop tingling. He flipped back to the photos he'd taken a few hours earlier. Nothing. He knew he'd seen them. Patterns, shapes in the ash. Precise, geometric designs spanning 30, maybe 40 meters. But every time he aimed his camera, the designs faded like disturbed sand. Optical illusion? Wind? Except there was no wind. The door hissed open. Dr. Lillian Werner entered, her environmental helmet under one arm and her dark hair matted with sweat. "You look like death warmed over," Wren said, sliding a cup of synthetic coffee her way. "I've seen worse," she muttered, slumping into the chair across from him. "But thanks. Also, this stuff tastes like engine coolant." It's comforting, like all our hopes and dreams crushed into powder form. Werner took a long sip despite herself. "All right, Grumpy McGrumpface, you want the good news or the weird news? Start with the good." The ash isn't volcanic. Ren frowned. That was the good news? Werner leaned forward. It's not from the volcanoes. The chemical composition doesn't match. I ran samples 3 times to be sure. Ren blinked. So, what is it? It's organic. He stared at her. As in it used to be alive. Ren sat back, the plastic creaking under him. The entire surface, she continued, is covered in a thick layer of decayed biological material. Not plant, not animal, something else. Whatever it was, it's dead now, long dead. But there's no match in any database. Any chance this stuff is still around? Werner's face turned grim. Initial scans don't show any large life forms, but we're getting weird energy readings. Could be geothermal, sure. Or, Ren rubbed his temples, or we're living on a graveyard. Welcome to Kepler, she said dryly. He looked out the window. The ash shimmered under the pale stars, and far away a volcano belched red fire into the void. For just a moment, a shadow moved across the blaze. Huge, fluttering, and formless. Ren blinked. Gone. He looked back at Werner, whose exhausted eyes met his. We're not alone here, he said quietly. No, she whispered. We never were. 3 days had passed since the colony touched down, and already the planet had begun its quiet resistance. Machines broke down without clear cause, circuits fried from phantom surges, and servos jammed with a dust that shouldn't have been able to penetrate sealed units. It wasn't sabotage, it was incompatibility, as if the world itself was allergic to human presence. Ren had given up trying to sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, the same image returned. The ash shifting in deliberate patterns, coiling like snakes, dancing like flames, forming glyphs no language had ever spoken, then blowing away just as his dream self reached out to touch them. He wasn't alone. Others had started reporting dreams too. Strange dreams. Lieutenant Caravas had woken up screaming in the middle of the night, clawing at her helmet and demanding someone get them off. When pressed, she could only say they were watching her. The things under the ash. No one could explain what she meant. The atmosphere was breathable, the EM field stable, and the gravimetric readings calm. Yet the entire colony pulsed with unease, as if the very soil rejected the idea of permanence. Ren, tired of waiting for answers, joined Dr. Werner on her next sample run outside the perimeter. You sure you want to do this? She asked, snapping the last seal on her biosuit. I've got 2 choices, Ren replied, fastening his gloves. Stay in there with people slowly going crazy, or come out here and look for why. Werner raised a brow. And you chose the second most insane option. You're welcome. The 2 trudged through the ash for nearly half a kilometer. The sun was weak but harsh, and it cast long, directionless shadows. Every few meters, Werner paused to collect samples, labeling each vial with a neat flick of her stylus. Then they found it. A crater, shallow and perfectly round, 16 meters across, maybe 3 deep, lined with smooth stone not visible anywhere else in the terrain. The crater's edge was sharp, unnaturally so, like it had been cut, rather than formed by impact. Ren knelt at the edge and ran a gloved hand along the surface. This is a lava rock, he murmured. Werner dropped to one knee beside him. Her gloved fingers tapped at the stone. It's been shaped, polished. She pulled out a small scanner and aimed it at the pit's center. The screen flickered, then dimmed, then died. She tapped it. Nothing. Ren drew his sidearm. Just in case. They climbed down into the crater, their boots sliding slightly on the slick surface. At the bottom, embedded in the center, lay a flat black disc. Not stone, not metal. Something else, impossibly smooth, too perfect for erosion or weathering. Ren stared at it, and for a moment, just a moment, it stared back. A ripple moved across the disk like oil disturbed by breath. His HUD blinked static. Then came the hum. It was low, subsonic, felt more than heard. A vibration in the spine, in the molars, in the brain. Ren dropped to one knee. Werner clutched her head. The hum built into a pulse, a beat, and then it stopped, leaving a silence so absolute it crushed the air out of Ren's lungs. Then, from beneath the disk, came a sound no one should ever hear on a dead world. A heartbeat. It was slow, massive, and old, alive. Ren and Werner looked at each other, horror etched in both their faces. "Back to base," she said, barely able to speak. "Now." Back at the habitat, Captain Walsh stood over the operations table as data poured in. Most of it was gibberish, unintelligible feedback loops, nonsense code, anomalous electromagnetic distortions. "I've got signals bouncing off nowhere," the communications officer said. "I'm receiving echoes of our own transmission from locations that don't exist." "EM ghosts?" Walsh asked. "No, these are replies." Walsh's jaw tightened. "From where?" "I don't know. There's nothing there, but something is answering us in our own voice." That was when the lights flickered. The temperature dropped 5 degrees in less than 2 minutes. And then every comm unit across the base whispered the same thing at the same time. "Why did you come here?" Walsh stared at the speaker. "Who said that?" "I don't know," the comms officer stammered. "It wasn't from our system. The voice, it's yours." The captain's blood ran cold. At that moment, the door hissed open, and Ren burst in with Werner on his heels. "Shut down all transmissions," he shouted. "Every signal, every scan. Now!" Walsh stepped forward. "What the hell happened?" Ren's face was pale beneath the helmet. "We found something. Under the ash. It's not natural. It's waiting, and I think we just woke it up." Werner stepped in. That hum. It wasn't mechanical. It was biological. Rhythmic. Like a hibernating neural system. "This entire planet is a tomb with a heartbeat," Walsh nodded slowly, "and we just started knocking on the lid." That night no one slept. From the volcanoes in the distance, strange lights rose, red and green and blue, weaving in unnatural patterns across the sky. The ash shifted in ways that defied wind, and in the far distance, something moved beneath it. The planet was no longer just strange, it was aware. Dawn never truly arrived on the planet. The sky lightened slightly, revealing swaths of gray as if someone had tried to erase color from the horizon. The ash fell softer now in thin veils, but with a new pattern. Ren noticed it first. "The ash is spelling something," he whispered. Across the settlement's walls and habitat domes, the fine dust arranged itself into geometric spirals, fractals, and long curving glyphs that resisted smudging. Every attempt to clean it off failed. The ash simply returned to its intended position, like it remembered. "It's intelligent," Dr. Werner said grimly, "or at least directed by something that is." The camp's science team worked in near silence, tracing the patterns, comparing them to linguistic databases. The glyphs had no root in human languages, but they obeyed internal logic, syntax, repetition, structure. It was a language. Captain Walsh called a full base lockdown. No one in or out. External transmissions had ceased on Ren's urgent advice, but internal chatter had grown frantic. People were seeing things in the ash. Children of crew members drew spirals with shaking hands, claiming someone was whispering to them at night. One engineer walked into the desert alone and never came back, leaving behind a slate reading, "I belong to the before." Inside the command dome, Werner paced between monitors, stringing together scans, sound readings, and ash patterns. Her hair was matted with sweat, eyes red from lack of sleep. "It's trying to communicate," she said, "but not just with words." She pulled up the waveform from the crater pulse, the heartbeat. "It's a language embedded in sound and pattern. Math, rhythm, form. It's ancient, maybe even pre-conscious. The kind of communication that came before thought." "You're saying it's alive?" Ren asked. "I'm saying this planet remembers, and it doesn't like us poking around." Ren looked at the spirals on the screen. One of them pulsed. He frowned. "That one just moved." Werner froze. "No, that can't." But it did. The spiral unfurled like a flower blooming in stop motion, shifting across the screen, dragging smaller glyphs into orbit like moons. "It's adapting," Werner whispered. "It's learning how to talk to us." That night, Ren stood watch along the perimeter wall. The ash was quieter now, but the wind carried with it distant sounds. Not voices, tones, notes strung together in melancholic chords, like some forgotten organ playing beneath the crust. He turned his headlamp toward the desert and caught movement. A figure. No suit. No gear. It was Lieutenant Voss, who had been sedated hours ago. "Voss?" He called into his mic. "Security Voss is outside the perimeter. How the hell did she get out?" No answer. He moved closer to the fence. She walked stiffly across the ash, barefoot, her skin gray with dust. She moved toward the crater. Ren bolted after her. When he reached her, she was kneeling at the crater's edge, whispering into the dark. "What are you doing?" he asked. She didn't turn. Her eyes were glassy. "They told me a secret," she murmured. "About the stars. About us." Ren grabbed her by the arm. "Come on, we're going back." But then the ground trembled, not like a quake, more like breathing. Ren turned his gaze toward the horizon. The ash swirled upward in vast columns, forming towering shapes, humanoid silhouettes hundreds of meters tall, made entirely of dust and memory. For a brief moment, he understood. Not with words, but with emotion. Ancient grief, rage, betrayal. The planet didn't hate them. It pitied them. "You don't belong here," the voice came. Not from Voss, not from the air, but from inside Ren's skull. "You never did." The ash swirled around them, lifting Voss gently into the air. She did not struggle. Then it dropped her. "Dead," Ren screamed. They buried Voss at the far end of the compound. There was no service. No one spoke. Everyone felt it now. The planet wasn't haunted. It was the ghost, a living relic, a tomb that dreamed. Captain Walsh ordered the crater sealed. Reinforced barriers, sensor suppression, everything short of an airstrike. "We came to build a colony," he told the remaining crew, "but we walked into a memory that refuses to fade." Ren cornered Werner that night. "There's more. You're holding something back." She didn't deny it, just unlocked a private file and showed him what they had discovered. A satellite scan of the planet's magnetic poles. Not poles. Structures. Colossal geometric masses, pyramids, obelisks, interlocking rings buried beneath miles of crust. Too symmetrical to be natural. Too old to be mapped. "The crater wasn't the first," Werner whispered. "It was just the loudest." Ren stared at the screen. "And we're not alone anymore, are we?" She shook her head. "Whatever we woke up, it remembers the last time someone came. And what happened to them?" Werner met his eyes. They didn't get to leave. That night, across the horizon, lights bloomed. Spirals in the sky, the ash rose in columns, and from the deep dark beneath the planet's surface, something began to climb upward. They had 36 hours left. Captain Walsh's order was clear. Evac all non-essential personnel, prep escape vectors, and initiate controlled abandonment of forward site Thorn. But it was too late. The planet had already made its decision. The ash no longer obeyed gravity. It formed shapes in the air, spirals, lattices, humanoid outlines. Children cried in their sleep, muttering fractured languages no human ever taught them. One engineer convulsed during a seizure and screamed in 3 voices at once, none of which matched his own. Inside the command dome, Dr. Werner delivered her final analysis. "This isn't just a planet," she said, pacing before the remaining command staff. Her hands trembled, her voice raw from sleepless hours. "It's a storage device." "For what?" someone asked. She hesitated. "For consciousness. For memory. Maybe even souls." Ren looked out the dome's window. Ash hovered in the air like fog, but it watched. It hovered in front of cameras, sensors, visors, as if examining them right back. "You're saying it's a graveyard?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "I'm saying it's an ark." They reviewed more scans. Miles below the surface, embedded in obsidian crust, were massive, dormant chambers, each designed not to contain physical life, but imprints. Conscious echoes. The civilization that built them didn't die. They uploaded themselves. But something went wrong. They recorded themselves into the crust, Werner explained. Into the planet's tectonic memory. But then something corrupted it. A virus of sorts. Ren blinked. "A mind virus?" She nodded. "Like a mimetic cancer. Maybe brought from somewhere else. Maybe created accidentally. It spread through their network and infected everything. They buried themselves to stop it," Captain Walsh said, voice hollow. "To contain it," Werner corrected. "But our dig site disrupted one of the suppression nodes. We didn't wake them up, we uncaged them." At 200 hours, the first real breach occurred. The ash overran a supply dome. When the Marines responded, they found it completely hollowed out. No bodies, just gear, helmets, weapons, and in the center, written in ash, "We became the dark to escape the hunger." Out of 417, the pilot of the primary evac shuttle reported seeing shadows in space. Not ships, forms. Dark filaments snaking from orbit, descending toward the planet like roots returning to soil. "They're coming back," Werner said, eyes wide. Ren had one last mission. The AI probe that triggered the crater pulse, the one they had originally dropped to scan for resources, had logged a return ping. A signal from deep beneath the surface. It had accepted a handshake. The probe now stood inert, buried at the lip of the crater. Whatever it had connected to was still speaking. Ren and a team of 3 were dispatched to retrieve its core. The landscape was unrecognizable. Ash-formed canyons that had not existed the day before. The sky shimmered with auroras in impossible colors, and across the ground were the footprints. Massive impressions in the soil, bipedal, each one wider than a dropship. They found the probe, still glowing, still connected. Ren moved to shut it down. That's when the vision struck. Not a dream, a download. He was standing in a cathedral, not one made by hands but by thoughts. The walls were symbols. The air tasted of memory. Before him stood the architect. It wasn't a god. It wasn't even a being. It was an equation, a self-aware computation that pulsed through dimensions, expressing itself as geometry and emotion. And it spoke, not in words but in truths. "You are the children of light and arrogance," it said. "You walk into the tombs of titans with open eyes and wonder why they scream." Ren tried to respond, but he had no mouth in this place. "You have done what others dared not. Disturbed the dead and tried to profit from their bones, and yet you still dream." He felt himself pulled backward, the cathedral collapsing around him, then darkness. He woke with blood pouring from his nose. The others were gone, or rather absorbed, their bodies lying in fetal positions, covered in symbols humming faintly. Ren pulled the core from the probe, fighting dizziness, and ran. Back at base, the situation had deteriorated. No more perimeter, no more sky, just black. The kind of black that ate light and hope and time. Ren slammed the core on the command table. It spoke to me. What did it say? Walsh demanded. That we aren't intruders, we're triggers. Werner stared at the core, then back at the scans. She understood. We're catalysts. The system was dormant, suppressed, but we're different enough, new enough that we activated protocols. We didn't just wake them up, we told them the universe has changed. She looked around, and now they want to see it. The command staff voted. One last plan. Not to escape, to warn. Ren and a skeleton crew would launch a beacon, a high-capacity quantum message array aimed at every human system, every outpost, every fleet. A message in all languages, all spectrums. Do not come here. Do not wake them. Do not dig the bones of stars. The beacon launched at dawn. If it was dawn, they watched it disappear into the sky, chased by black filaments curling upward like grasping hands. Then silence. In the final hours, Ren stood at the edge of the crater. The ash whispered nothing now. It simply hung there, like a curtain waiting to rise. He saw lights blooming on the horizon. Not fire, not fusion. Awakening. Werner stood beside him. They're not angry, she said quietly. No, Ren replied. They're curious. He turned to her, and we gave them a reason to explore again. The ground pulsed like a heartbeat. A door opened in the crater, and a light older than stars spilled out. They stepped forward. Together. Epilogue. Years later. Somewhere in deep space, a freighter intercepts a transmission. Garbled. Fragmented. But urgent. A single phrase, translated across hundreds of languages. Do not wake them. The crew laughs it off. Just another ghost story. They set course for the unmarked system, the one with the odd gravity field, the one with no name.